Now, passive income is possible. Passive income is possible. In a business, passive income requires you to really go through it for 5 to 7 years to build the engines that I talk about. And then you're going to be able to go and have drinks on the beach while the business is working without you.
Welcome to Unstoppable Podcast with Harry Sardinas, inspiring conversations with influential millionaires, investors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs who are making a massive difference with their innovative products and services, and sharing the challenges and wisdom of how they sold their first million.
Why everybody was in an office before? Because it was more productive. The internet has been around a long time, yeah, and we it was reason why we used to come to the office in the first place before. If we just kind of, and now it's very difficult to get the people out of the house, and also again, I don't know, when you are if you want to go, you go for it with colleagues, and then you chit chat, and at least you have, like a problem, which is actually at work. Look, you see, we need to improve this leadership. Then you go back and you sit and you socialize and you see your teamwork. So that energy that you get when you're working in a place together with other people, you don't get it if you are the whole week working online. Even me, I'm a public speaker. I speak in front of audiences all over the world. And when COVID came, I'm like, and somebody told me, Harry, you have to go and Zoom in front of the camera. I'm like, what? How come? How can I do this? I need to see people. See people. I cannot be in front of the camera. And this podcast, I'm very grateful because I've met amazing people like you. But I was resisting to it a lot before I started, because I always find a way to. However, if from this broadcast we can raise the conversation for people to socialize more, it's good for companies. You're 100% right.
That's true.
And
one more
about
important
scaling
point on
up,
that too.
and expand a little bit more in the scaling, Steve, because you said something which is very interesting. Yeah, you can go 10 to 100 million, everybody online. Don't get me wrong. But we're talking about the fastest way not only to make the path easy. You don't make 100 million and jump into a company that has a toxic environment where everybody have to achieve a certain number. If you don't achieve the last month, you fire. Yeah, you make 100 million like that. A lot of people have done it. But this is a company you want to run? Or do you want to create some framework? I understand if you're a mom, you cannot be 9 to 5 in an office. And that's why online there. But you see, online can get some office time to the mom if she wants to do it when she can. And that also will have a very positive impact in the mental health, I think. So tell us a little bit about scaling up, because this is go to 10 million to 100 million. This is a different ball game. And a lot of things can go wrong. I'm the first victim of scaling up. When 0 to 1, it was, when we're scaling 1 to 5, I'm scaled too fast. I didn't know what I was doing. And actually, the team had the brilliant idea. Let's go everybody online. Nobody wants to go to the office. And I said, okay, if you don't want to go to the office, I'm not going to pay for the office. So everybody was happy to work from home. Yes, we're happy. Okay, guess what happened? We still to scale up. I'm scaling up too fast. And then the team, I'm taking, my first business was in property. So we rent a property in London, and then we rent individually the room. So I'm on charge of finding the house. So I'm finding the houses, and then the team need to sell it. And, but if I find a house cheap, I take it. And if I find another one cheap, I take it. And then because my team is online, then they say, Harry, you cannot take 2 houses because now we have 10 rooms empty at the same time.
Yep.
And I said, well, which if we were in the office, we will figure out that way, but because now everybody's at home. So tell us a little bit more about scaling up and this online in-person game.
I'll tell you, the beautiful thing about an e-commerce business and an online business is that you really can be a business of one up to $3, $4, $5 million of revenue. There's not many businesses that are like that you can have that level of scale as a business of one. The problem is anyone who gets to 5 million as a business of one tends to have a really hard time going to 10, 15, and 20 because they've gotten so used to being that operator themselves. They've never had to hire someone. They never had to work with people having to work together, trying to figure out how to get everyone on the same page. They were just the one doing everything themselves. And eventually, if you're doing all the work yourself, you will peak out either at your capacity of what you're able to do or the capacity of what you are willing to do, because you're going to get comfortable. You're going to start making more money than you ever made before in your life. And if it's just you and you get comfortable, that's a very dangerous spot for the business to be in. Because the moment you get comfortable and it's just you start slacking off a little bit. And that business will underperform because you get comfortable. Okay, so you know you need employees. When you're scaling up from one and you've got to go to 20 or 25 employees, all of the headaches of dealing with people that you never even thought of before when you were a small business, you start figuring out, man, it's hard to hire good people. People say one thing when they're talking to you in an interview, and they are not that person when they actually show up. You got to have a system and a process of doing good quality interviews to filter out the people that are not going to be good for your organization before. And that's a learning curve in and of itself. That takes years in and of itself to find the right people for your organization. Then getting them all to work together. I learned so many lessons scaling up from a company of 2 to a company of 20 in 18 months. Hiring everyone, getting them all on the same page, trying to establish a management layer in between so that I wasn't individually talking to all 20 people inside the business. And so many of the lessons that we learned as a remote company was getting everyone on the same page. Man, if you as the business owner don't understand what everyone's role is, why you hired them, exactly what they need to do, and how they fit into the bigger picture, how the hell are they supposed to know what their job is, who they should be collaborating with? And so what you realize is as you start hiring and scaling up, if you're not organized as the owner of the business, your employees are going to be fighting over a lot of ticky-tack stuff to figure out who's in charge of what, because you never even thought of that far. You just thought, I need some people to do this job. Okay, you went and hired them. Well, nobody knows who they answer to. Nobody knows who's responsible, where there's overlap, who they have to communicate with, because that was all living up inside your head. And so one of the best things that you can do before you start scaling is literally take every single component of the business that you and your early employees do and turn it into, I know it's boring, standard operating procedures, and literally write down what you do, why you do it, why it's important, how you do it into a document. Now, these days it's 2026. We made it easier for people. ChatGPT is really good at taking what you do in verbal format, talking to it, and turning it into an SOP that is repeatable that somebody else could pick up. It's getting phenomenal at that. It's one of the best things ChatGPT can do is when you give it all the information and it can turn it into a nice standard operating procedure document that can be reused by somebody else. Then it's good at following that process once you've given it the SOP for someone to go through. But you have to have that figured out. You got to have an org chart that understands, here's where I am, here's who answers to me, here's who answers to them, and here's where there's overlap between those roles and how we're going to handle that. Because those are the things you want to be telling somebody in an interview. You're going to answer to this person. You're going to be doing this job. You'll be collaborating with these people. And if you can't articulate that, you have the normal mess that most businesses have when they're hiring up their first dozen employees, where it's like, oh, we're just going to build it all together. Building it all together is a recipe for conflict because people are joining your team based off the description that you gave them in the job. And they say things like, well, that's not on my job description. That's not what I was hired for. And like, well, you joined a startup, okay? Your job is going to change over time. We're building this all together. You got to find the right culture and people to join you on that. But all of the headaches from interpersonal contact, and all the headaches from people not getting along, for me, they could have been avoided by me taking 1 to 2 weeks of sitting down with no distractions and identifying these are the roles that are vital to the machine that I've already built, so that 6 months from now, I can do a whole lot less and start to be the one driving the machine instead of the one who's building the machine. And here's exactly what that job is. Here's who we need to hire for it. Here's the skill and competency that's important for them to be good at that job and to come in and learn that job and to collaborate with others on the team. If I would have spent that time and thought process first before scaling up, and you know this from scaling, all of the issues you run into when scaling, whether it's people, whether it's product, whether it's manufacturing, they all can be avoided if you planned more before you started. if you talk to someone else who's scaled already and understands. And it's kind of a rite of passage as a business owner to go through the scaling woes to understand, man, I have so many issues that could have been avoided if I had planned first, but I didn't know to plan. And so if you think about scaling the same way you think about starting your business, where you're going to fail, you expect to fail going in, you iterate the product, and scaling is kind of the same way. You will break the machine that you made in your business when you begin to scale. Just know that. And you iterate on it and you get better at it. And as you're scaling, it's kind of the same thing as starting your business from scratch. It takes time and failure to get good at it. The second time you scale a business is going to be 10 times easier because you know what to avoid and you know how to properly plan before you get started with it. Scaling is always going to be a challenge. And I think the only way to make it easier is like anything else in life. Already have done it once before and have the confidence to know I can do this. I've done it before. Well, until you've done it the first time, you have to get that motivation and that momentum and that confidence from, hey, I've got a body of work of things I figured out before that were equally as complex as scaling this business. I know I'm going to figure it out. I don't know when and I don't know how, but I know I have what it takes to figure out how to scale this business. And it's going to be a bumpy road, but hey, nothing easy was ever done without going uphill. And this is meaningful. It's going to be hard. I'm going to fail. And that's okay. That's how I think about scaling.
Steve, if someone is in love in the conversation with this conversation, how people can find you, how this process works, and tell us about your book also before we conclude.
I'd love to. I'm Steve Rolle. It's Rolle is my last name. You can find me and collaborate with me at steverolle.com. I do have a book coming out at the end of July. It's called The Future You Choose. And this is a book for aspiring entrepreneurs. It's a book for people who are hungry, who want to start a business, who want to quit their 9-to-5. And it's really a blueprint that tells you, okay, so you have all this aspiration. How do you start a business? What do you do for that business? Okay, once you built the business, how do you make the business so that you're not going to be stuck inside that business for the rest of your life in the same bondage you could have had in your 9-to-5? That's what this book is all about, to motivate you to change your mindset, to have agency, start a business and prepare it the right way so that one day you can step away from it and achieve that beautiful thing that we call passive income. And now passive income is possible. Passive income is possible. In a business, passive income requires you to really go through it for 5 to 7 years to build the engines that I talk about. And then you're going to be able to go and have drinks on the beach while the business is working without you. But you earned that drink on the beach while the business is making money. It wasn't passive income like putting your money into the S&P 500 or buying a rental property. This is a different kind of passive income, but it is achievable. Look, I'm all about people having control in their lives. And I don't hate people that have a 9-to-5. I've had a 9-to-5 before. I wanted more control over my employment than that. And that's why I wanted to be a business owner. And that's why I wanted to be able to understand what are the levers that allow me to be in control of my own life. That's why I wrote the book. I wrote the book for people that are just like me, that are hungry like me, and want to be in control, but they need a little bit of a push. They need some motivation. They want to hear from someone else who's already done it. And this book is a blueprint of how I did it and exactly how others can do the exact same thing. So I appreciate you giving me the chance to throw the plug in there for the book, but I'm Rolle With Steve on all social platforms, Rolle With Steve, and you can go to my website, steverolle.com.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential, audacious entrepreneurs that overcame challenges and adversity, providing you with the blueprint of how they sold their first million so you can grow your business exponentially.